Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome again to the Successful Money Principles. The tech gods were not being kind to me on this evening, so we getting started a little bit late, but I wanted to make sure that I got in and shared this important information with you. I could not let this time go by without sharing. And so, what we talked about last week, we are in the month of May, the best month of the year. It is Mother's Day month, and it is my birth month, so got to be the best month of the year. And so, what we are talking about for the entire month of May is reassess to reset. And this is something that I, talked about that I do in my birth month every year to kind of a midway point from where I, set my goals and intentions for the year back in December. This is kind of a mid-year mark for me, and I kind of go in and kind of do an assessment of where I am right now, and to see if a reset is necessary. If we need to do some calibrations to some goals that we've set for the year, but also I like to take this opportunity as well to kind of look at some important documents to make sure that everything is the way it should be. Things are in place the way you want them to be. So in case anything were to happen, then everything is right and ready. And so on this week, what we're going to be looking at is in your insurances and your beneficiaries. And so, again, these are some things that I look at this time of the year. Again, just to make sure that everything is good to go. Um, Health insurance is one of them. And at this point, normally at this point in the year, it's not a whole lot of changes that you can make to your insurance. If your job is anything like mine's, at the end of the year is when they have that open season when you can make adjustments or whatever to your insurance. But I kind of take this time to kind of look at, my appointments that I've had, if I've had to have any type of procedures or things like that, were it adequately covered for me for the year. So that kind of give me something to kind of take some notes on, to kind of take a look at. So if I do need to look at making some changes in December, because December is not the time that you want to be looking at it, because if you need to make the change, you want to know if that's something that you need to be doing so that you can start, so then you can begin to, at that time doing the research on some of the other companies that you may be looking at options to change into. So again, I am looking at my health insurance, kind of seeing if the coverage that I have is adequately, protecting or insuring me and my family. So that's something that I look at on this month. Of course, we want to look at our life insurance policies. Um, do you have enough? When we set policies, we get them, 5, 10, 20 years ago. Um, but I like to look at mine to ensure that I have adequate coverage. You know, your home that you got, do you, if something were to happen, do you have adequate coverage to be able, to pay that off for your family? Do you have that in place? Um, you know your car insurance, you want to look at that, but especially, like I said, your life insurance, because you want to make sure that you have an adequate amount of coverage that's going to take care of the expenses that you have. But then you want to be able to leave, for your burial expenses, but want to be able to leave a nest egg for your family if you so choose to. I know that's not something that everybody wishes to do, but that is definitely something that I am looking forward to doing when God sees fit for me to depart this life. Is to make sure that my family is well taken care of. Okay, and so at different points in your life, you want to look at, term life, whole life, universal life, those things like that. So again, that is going to be a personal preference, but again, that's something that I take a look at to ensure that I have accurate, enough coverage, to make sure that my the needs that my family have are going to be taken care of. I'm, coming into a new era in my life. I got, my last child is getting ready to graduate here, from high school. So he'll be going on, to higher education. And so, you want to make sure that, if something were to happen, then the money is there for, um, him to be able to still go on to college and not have to worry about that if something were to happen for whoever, my older son, if he were to, be with him, for him to be able to take care of him until he gets to a place where he could take care of himself. So those are just some things, that I assess and I look at this time of the year. So again, you want to make sure that the coverage amount is sufficient for your family. Look at, are you coming up on if you got a term policy, are you coming up on your term? Because, that can come up on you real quick and you don't even realize it. So again, this gives you the time, to kind of look at and look at, okay, I'm a year or two out. Do I need to, look at getting some more, renewing that coverage so that, and then again, the premiums that you have, are they affordable for you? Or is it something else that you need to look at, in order to, make it feasible for yourself now, but, for yourself in the future. And then, like I said, we're talking about insurances and your beneficiaries, and you most certainly want to make sure, that you're looking at the beneficiary on all of your policies, your insurance policies, and make sure that who you have designated, to get your insurance actually gets it. I know last week I shared a little bit about my story on that. So if you missed that, go back and take a look there. But this is something that, because of that incident, I make sure that I check this a couple of times a year to make sure that the beneficiaries that I want to get, my money is getting it. And again, with my younger son hitting 18 now, then that's a change that's going to be made, for me this year, with him, coming of age. So, that is definitely something that you want to look at. Um, and so, the next thing is, depending on what your age is, you may want to look at, some options for, disability, coverage. Is that something that your employer offers as an option, an optional coverage, or is it somewhere outside of your employer, that you want to seek that coverage because that may be something that can help you, in the future. So, do you have, if you have it already, is it adequate coverage? Or again, do you need to add that? Are you at a point in your life where that's something that you may want to look at adding? And then you want to look at your homeowners and renters insurance. This is very, very important, especially this time of year. They go and they do these, adjustments, to our taxes every year. So when they send that out, they come up and they say, the new assessed value of your property. And so if you don't have adequate coverage, for your policy, then if something were to happen and, a fire or something, Lord forbid, but something happens, you not being adequately covered, then being able to, being in a position where you could replace your home if need be. So you want to make sure, that you taking that into an account and looking at, your coverages on your, home. And if there's any additional coverage that you may want to get, maybe you found that you see and experiencing, around you, some floods. So maybe you want to look at getting some flood insurance if you didn't think it was necessary before. So that may be something. So again, this is something I feel that's very important, to do an assessment of, on it at least an annual basis. But in my case, I do it a couple of times a year. Your auto insurance, again, you want to look at your coverage amount for that. Um, see if maybe there's some discounts or something out there that you may be eligible for, because maybe you've hit an age, hit a target age, for that, or maybe they're offering some discounts for taking a class or something like that. So I kind of take a look at that on my insurance carriers, go in there and see if they offered any kind of deals or anything like that. I take a look at that. And then, again, if, depending on the age of your car, if you can lower your coverage, so things like that you want to take a look at. Do you need liability and collision, or, comprehensive, and so again, those are some things that you want to take a look at. And then, last but not least, on insurance is your long-term care. So, long-term care, for those of you that don't know, that's an insurance that, if something were to happen to you and you were to become incapacitated, or you were to need, nursing care or something like that, having this insurance can save your family members from a lot of money having to pay out of pocket for somebody to be able to care for you. And until probably a good two, maybe a couple of years ago, I had the unfortunate thing happen where, my uncle, he had got sick, and needed to be, was in a nursing home, and he didn't have a wife, he didn't have any kids, and so he needed some place to go because he no longer was in a position to be able to care for himself, because of the cancer. And so, in doing my research at that time, into long term, into facilities to be able to put him in, and I mean, it about knocked my socks off. It really did. The amount, the cost, and the expense that they charge, when you don't have insurance to put someone. I mean, I'm talking $10,000 a month, to put someone in a nursing home, and that wasn't even a private room. And so, definitely something, that you want to take a look at, if your pockets will permit it. That is definitely something, that can be of benefit to you, and your family, in the long run. Of course, we don't wish anything like that to happen, um, on ourselves, but just like we don't wish for anything to happen to us in our car, but we get that car insurance to, so that if something does happen, that we're covered. And I think in this case, this is another, expense that I think, is a necessary and a needed expense. Okay, so you definitely want to, take a look at your options, for that, to see if maybe this is the time that you may want to, invest in that. Okay. All right. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about beneficiaries. So just a few, other accounts outside of your insurances and things that I just want to, encourage you to look at your beneficiaries on them. And so, your retirement accounts, you want to make sure that you take a look at those, make sure again that the correct beneficiaries are on there. Your investment accounts, again, making sure that you have beneficiaries named on those accounts. Your bank accounts, very important. A lot of people don't think about this, but making sure that you have, beneficiaries named on your bank accounts. Okay. And then, your employers, all the things that, through your employment, like, your group life insurance through your employer, your pension, if it's got a spouse and you elected to have, making sure that they're listed, for that. um like if you were to pass while you were on the job and you still were owed money, because you have worked a time, time period, whatever, then again having beneficiaries named, so that any of your payroll funds or whatever goes to that person. So you definitely want to look at that. Um, any annuities that you may have taken out. Just want to make sure that your beneficiaries on that are confirmed, accurate, and current. And then, if you had any college savings plans for any of your kids or grandkids, again, if you were paying on those, making sure that beneficiaries are named on that. And just a little caveat. Um, I want to say, we have, all of these things and have the beneficiaries. But one thing that, and I think we'll talk about it in the next couple of weeks here, but if you had a trust, then all of these things could be in that trust. And so that your trust could be the beneficiary of all of these things. And so everything will go in that trust. And then you would name one beneficiary to that trust and they would manage, everything. So that is definitely an option that you can look at as well. But if you don't have a trust, you do want to make sure that you have named beneficiary on all these different types of accounts. Okay. And so, just to wrap things up here, again, we're doing a reassess to reset, just to look at and make sure that things are in place and are in order. And for me, I do these things a couple of times a year in my birth month here in May, and normally in December, getting ready for the turn of the year. But there are a few other times that, that may warrant you doing it a little bit more often. And so I'm talking about, any life changes, marriages, divorces, a death, unfortunately, a death or a birth of a child that may cause some changes to some of these things, that you may need to, do them more frequently than those once or twice a year. If you've, changed, your changing your finances have happened, again, that may be something that will prompt you to make some changes in any of these areas of as well. And then when you're looking at these documents, you want to make sure that they're legally compliant, that everything is legal and in good order, so that your family don't have any issues in the case that something did happen to you. And just again, documentation, keep everything in a place where you have that one or two people that know exactly where your things are. And so you want to make sure they have everything together. So again, if something were to happen, there's someone that you trust to be able to get to all of that information. And then also, if you were in a home and something were to happen, you can readily, assess it and get out with it as well. So again, I thank you all for joining me on tonight. I hope this information was helpful for you. We are taking this month, in the month of May, to reassess, to reset. And on next week, we're going to, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to carry on with this for the remainder of the month. And I hope to see you on next week. And again, I thank you very much and see you next week. Bye bye.